I've heard you speak to the three qualities that make things more addictive. And we now live in a society where we have so many things that really have those three qualities, and social media obviously being a big one. So first, what are those three? And then in what ways is social media particularly damaging in that process?
So they are potency, quantity, and access. Sometimes I talk about novelty too.
Yeah, I got quantity, potency, novelty.
Okay. The access is important. I actually usually talk about four. So let's do potency. So potency number one is how much dopamine it releases and how quickly. If we look at traditional drugs over time, we have bioengineered, and when I say traditional drugs, mainly it's plant-based drugs. We've managed to bioengineer those to make them much, much more potent than they ever were, than they ever are in nature. Opioids are a great example. So opium, which has been around for many thousands of years and which people have used, takes a lot of effort. You got to grow a whole poppy field, right? And then you got to harvest and cultivate it. You got to wait for that to happen. And then you have to, do what you do with the resin. And then you got to smoke it or you got to drink it. Fast forward to today, we have fentanyl. It's many, many times more potent than opium or morphine. It's made in a laboratory. You don't need a poppy plant precursor, right? I mean, that just explodes all of that, right? And that kind of trajectory for every single traditional substance is there. For cannabis, right? The cannabis today is wildly more potent than the cannabis of even 30 years ago. Alcohol, we have all of these different beverages. They're much more potent if we choose to drink a potent one. Caffeinated beverages, nicotine products. It's all vapes are like the,
hyper-palatable foods.
Right. Food, right, exactly. The additional salt, fat, sugar, flavorants. It's all of that. So potency, we've vastly increased the potency. Number two, quantity. So quantity matters, right? How much we're exposing our brains to and how often has a big impact on the addiction risk. The more we use and the more frequently we use, the more likely we are to change our brains in this way that leads us to this dopamine deficit state, which is the sine qua non or the origin of this dysphoria-driven relapse where we're using not to get high, but just to feel normal. And quantity, it's everywhere now, right? I mean, TikTok is infinite. It literally never runs out. The cigarette rolling machine that was invented, I think, in the 1800s, we went from being able to manufacture 4 cigarettes an hour to manufacturing 4 cigarettes a minute to manufacturing 20,000 cigarettes a minute. Now we have a supply chain that can transport them all over the world. There's nowhere you can go on planet Earth and not get pretty much any drug you want, right? So the access, the quantity is huge. Novelty, right? How do we overcome tolerance when our drug stops working? We take two separate drugs, combine them together, make a new drug, and our brain goes, oh, that's cool. I've never seen that before, right? And all of a sudden, we got the dopamine going again. I mean, novelty is instantly overcome, or tolerance is instantly overcome on the internet, right? Mm-hmm. By taking music, which is reinforcing and releases dopamine for many people, and adding it to a narrative, which is a story. Stories are reinforcing, and then turning it into a game. What do you have? You have American Idol right there, right?
Infinite novelty.
Right. And it's, highly potent, highly reinforcing, incredibly accessible 24/7. So I think that's what we're dealing with.